There is huge variation in how most experts are using OpenClaw versus how beginners are using it. And in this video, we're gonna cover how people are using OpenClaw at 5 different levels, from total beginner to absolute expert. You'll also learn how you can unlock more value with OpenClaw, or really AI agents in general. And there will be a heavy emphasis on real-world use cases, specific use cases, because I believe people learn best through examples. I've spent many hours researching, playing with OpenClaw, pulling this all together. And at each level, here's what we're gonna cover. Who typically operates at that level, as well as the percentage of the population that falls into that bucket. That's obviously gonna be an estimate, but I think it's a good idea to understand who's where on average. We'll talk about what people are using it for, then, like I said, specific use cases. We'll cover average token costs for that level. Again, obviously this is a wide estimate, but again, it's good to just give you an idea. We'll cover what changes from level to level, how people think about security at each level or what they miss, and then how value is measured. Like, what is this actually doing for me besides just the hype? And there are timestamps at the bottom if you're short on time. If you're new here, my name is Ben. I'm part of the team at a YC AI startup, so I live in this world consistently. Now, I'm definitely not a level 5. I'm not trying to claim to be, but I actually think it's really good to have someone who's not an expert to explain things in a way that makes sense to the average person. I really try not to use a lot of jargon, and I try to explain terms that maybe are kind of confusing, especially if you're a little bit newer to this. So that's my goal here. With that, let's get started. At level 1, we have beginners, and this is roughly 58% of users. The average person at this level looks like this guy. And sorry to whoever this is, I literally just grabbed a LinkedIn profile. But some sales development rep who's interested in AI and is just getting started. This could be a curious founder, someone who's heard about AI, wants to start taking action, or a tinkerer who's playing around trying to build things. Now at this level, we're seeing people connect pretty basic apps. So this could be Notion, it could be Todoist, maybe Google Calendar, Gmail, things like that. It's a pretty simple connection. You're not using a ton of functionality yet. In talking about use cases for a level 1 user, it might be something like this, a simple note-taking workflow. So you have an idea, but rather than opening your notes app, finding the exact place you want to put it, you just send it to OpenClaw, tell it where to put it, and it will automatically sort it into the right spot. This is great if you're on the go. Use case 2 is a daily briefing from Google Calendar. So OpenClaw connects to your GCal account, reads what sort of meetings you have, any notes attached to those, and gives you a basic briefing in the morning when you ask for it. And then third, a simple reporting workflow, say for Google Ads, where you can ask OpenClaw to go in, pull the data that you want over whatever time range, analyze it a little bit to give you the key insights, and then spit it out to you. In terms of token costs for a level 1 user, this is a rough estimate of what it might look like. It's actually pretty cheap here because you're not doing anything too intensive. Now, security protocols. Here, the average level 1 user is really doing very little, almost nothing when it comes to security. Typically, it's something like making sure that it doesn't have deletion access. So if there's going to be any hard changes, it has to ask for permission first. But these level 1 users can get into danger because of this. We'll talk about how to level up security in the future levels. And then value is measured in what I call the wow, this is cool level. You've built something, you're tinkering. It can do something new that's exciting, but honestly, a lot of these level 1 workflows you can already get in a different way or just using a simpler LLM. And so it's not like you're really unlocking a ton of value here, but you are maybe saving a few minutes here or there because instead of having to go pull a bunch of stuff, you can have what you need delivered straight to you in text on your phone. Now, moving on to level 2. Who typically is at level 2? It's someone like this girl. This is maybe a solo founder. It's a productivity power user who's looking to level up. Or it's an operator at a company who is technical-ish, not proficient, but really learning and trying to get better. This is where you're crossing from, oh, this is a cool toy, to, wow, this actually helps me. What a level 2 person might do with OpenClaw are things like scheduled or repeating tasks, which you don't see as much in level 1, converting formats, so something like a voice note into a journal, maybe connecting to some more niche apps, like you can do smart home control, so connect to, say, a Philips Hue, change your lights at a certain time of the day or when something happens, stuff like that. This is also where we're starting to see stringing together of multiple of these workflows. So you might have morning briefings, inbox summaries, reports coming in, simple health checks on different stuff for your company, etc. But now let's talk concrete examples. So use case 1 at level 2 is the daily founder briefing. Say every morning at 8 a.m., OpenClaw will summarize your calendar, pull the top emails, list the top 3 unfinished tasks from yesterday, grab notes from earlier on in the week, maybe pull Stripe revenue summary, and then send it to you all as one message with just the key info. In technical terms, a repeating task like this is called a cron job, but really that just means something that repeats over time. Like say every day at 8 a.m., this happens. Use case 2 is inbox triage. So OpenClaw is reading new emails, classifying them, drafting responses, but never sending automatically. And in general, this is a very good idea really at any level to create drafts but not send them. You want to have that human in the loop to make sure nothing goes awry. Maybe if you get really, really proficient and you start to trust your OpenClaw more, then you could have them send a few things automatically. Use case 3 is a weekly metric digest. So OpenClaw is pulling traffic data, revenue, say from Shopify, churn from whatever analytics tool you use, and then delivering it to you along with the key insights, maybe some action items. As for token costs at level 2, we're looking at something like this. Again, obviously these are estimates. Your use can vary a lot, but it's typically something like this. Now, what changes from level 1 to level 2? At level 2, you are starting to pull together multiple different apps, so it's not just one thing, but it's a few coming together. Additionally, this is where we'll typically start to see cron scheduling, as we talked about, so repetitive tasks happening at a certain time. Oftentimes, this is also where you see people use OpenClaw in something like Slack as opposed to Telegram. And you can set it up across a number of different chat options. Telegram is probably the most popular just because it's the easiest to set up. So if you're at level 1, typically you're recommended to do Telegram. But a lot of people, especially if you're building a company, operate within Slack. And so more and more people like to have their OpenClaw in Slack. So it feels more like a team member and it's easier to have everything there. As for security here, one of the ones that we talked about is draft-only versioning for emails or for anything else important that you're sending out externally. So OpenClaw can draft something, it'll ping you and say, hey, created this, take a look, see what you think, but you are always the one making the final decision of does this go out. Additionally, this is where you're going to often start isolating jobs. At a high level, this means you're siloing things in terms of the tools or the keys or the access that you give OpenClaw, so that if one thing breaks, it doesn't ruin everything else. As for how is value measured at level 2, this is where we start to see real value. So it's measured in minutes saved on tasks that you don't have to do manually anymore. It's reduced task switching because you don't have to go check all of these different things. OpenClaw can do that for you, pull it all together where it's just in one interface, you see the stuff you need. And then reduced cognitive load because you can start offloading a few things that you know OpenClaw is going to take care of. You stop thinking about it, but it runs on its schedule, it gets it done. Next up, we have level 3. And here I want to talk about 2 new ideas that are going to start really popping up around level 3. So the first is CLI. CLI stands for Command Line Interface. You don't have to remember what any of that means. It's basically just a simple computer program that you run. It's not even necessarily related to AI or to OpenClaw. But instead of opening a website and clicking around to do all this stuff, you type a simple command and it takes the action that you want. So for example, you might have a CLI, Stripe CLI revenue last 30 days. That's going to pull your last 30 days revenue data from Stripe, give it to you. Or say if you're using Phantom Buster, which if you don't know, doesn't matter. It's just used to scrape like LinkedIn leads. So you could have a CLI that's Phantom Buster, CLI scrape, search Austin founders, limit 200. It's gonna run a scraping job searching for founders in Austin with a max limit of 200. So that's what you need to know about CLIs for now. We're gonna tie a few more things into that really soon. So the second thing to talk about is skills, specifically skills in OpenClaw. These are like little add-ons that give your OpenClaw superpowers. It's almost like a power-up in a video game. But anybody can create skills and they have a repository where you can download other people's skills. And oftentimes skills will leverage CLIs. That's why CLIs are important. They're essentially like very well structured instructions for a skill to use. But skills don't only use CLIs, they can also connect to APIs of certain tools, run scripts, and do a bunch of other stuff. This diagram is really handy to understand this. So at the top level, we have agents. An agent can have and use multiple skills. Within a skill, you'll have CLIs, API connections, scripts, even a few other things. And then the CLI or the API might connect to an external system. So like we mentioned, Phantom Buster, Stripe, GitHub, Gmail, to actually pull the data that you need. Now, if that's a little confusing, don't worry. Right now, we are going to jump into, you guessed it, specific use cases. So use case 1 at level 3, you want to get 200 founders in Austin from a LinkedIn search and then put them into HubSpot, your CRM, tagged as Austin founders. The skill that your OpenClaw is going to use here will validate the inputs. It's going to trigger Phantom Buster, again, that tool I mentioned before that scrapes LinkedIn. It's going to continuously check the status until it is finished. It'll pull all of those results, either in JSON, CSV, maybe some other format. It will normalize and enrich them, potentially if you want it to, and then send the output to the destination. So here we specified HubSpot, but you could also send it to Airtable, Notion, Google Sheets, etc. Then it would probably do something like send a summary to your chat. So it'd say, hey Ben, I just pulled all of these leads, 187 went through, there's 13 duplicates, these 6 weren't found or something was wrong with them. This is what you need to know. They're all in HubSpot. Use case number 2 at level 3, customer service replacement. So in the old way, a human would answer the phone, take some notes, put it into the system, update your CRM, send a follow-up email, assign a task in like Linear or Asana or something like that. The new one is a customer calls. The AI voice listens, maybe connect to something like Bland. It takes the notes for you, sends the structured data to OpenClaw. OpenClaw then triggers the backend tools. So it's going to update your CRM. It's going to draft a follow-up email for you to send, maybe even automate the sending of that email if it's really simple and you can trust it, and then create the task in whatever task management tool you use, as well as send you a summary of, hey, here's what happened. Use case number 3 is a content pipeline. So the old ways, everything's manual. You have to think of ideas, you write the scripts for ideas, you go grab footage, do research, all of that. The new way is you input a topic. OpenClaw goes and does a ton of research across this. You could connect to, say, Grok to pull some real world data from X. You can do deep research, checks any data of stuff you've previously published to make sure you're not duplicating things, suggests titles. It could create a Notion template document with script, shot list, etc. Creates a thumbnail prompt, and packages it all together, posts it to Slack and tags you and says, hey, here I've put together this new video idea. Now, one thing I want to be very clear about, because I do think there's a ton of hype, is this probably isn't going to be perfect, especially as someone who's created a lot of content. I don't think AI does an excellent job at this, but it is getting a lot better, and there are definitely parts that it's super helpful to have AI do. So that's the third example. I don't want to be one of those people who's like, oh, AI is going to automate everything. No, it's still like, it's not going to be perfect, but it is good and it is getting better. Now we got a little out of order here, so let's jump back into it. The average persona at level 3 looks like this person. This is a high-level tinkerer. It's a builder, operator. Maybe you're running your own business. You're maybe an engineer at a SaaS company or an AI company, but you're fairly deep into the AI world. Level 3 is going to be roughly 12% of people. Like anything, this is where we start to see a bit of a drop off as you really go up in levels. Token costs at level 3 are going to look something like this depending on which model you want to use. Again, obviously this will vary. So really what changes at level 3? The biggest thing is you're starting to integrate skills to take actions that you couldn't with just the normal basic OpenClaw, as well as now you're starting to think more about security. More on that in a second. The one other thing I'll add in that oftentimes you see around level 3 is a little bit more intelligence around model selection. So different models will perform better at different things. Also, some are more expensive, some are cheaper. Sometimes you don't always need the more expensive model. So this is where you'll start to see people do things like use OpenRouter to automatically select the best model for that task. Now let's talk security, because at level 3, this is really where things start to get important and where you start to see people take a lot more action with regards to security. And basically the understanding here is that if OpenClaw can access your GitHub or your Gmail or your CRM, you need to make sure that you are using limited permissions for each of those, that you are using separate keys, so siloed off for each of these, and not giving it full admin rights. But that's not all. Usually this is where we see people starting to watch out more for prompt injection. And so oftentimes you'll see people have non-AI written code that runs continuously to check for anything that could be prompt injection. And then similarly, consistent checks that watch for other issues that could arise, where an agent is going off and doing something that it shouldn't do, or something is getting flagged, certain keywords are popping up across a tool that shouldn't be there. And then we'll trigger you and say, hey, we're seeing this thing that seems like it shouldn't be happening. Go check in on this. At level 3, value is measured in how many steps were removed from a process, how many hours were saved, how many errors were prevented is another big one if you're doing more technical things, and how many items were processed automatically. And at level 3, we are really starting to see serious value. It's not just hype anymore. It is tasks being automated that otherwise would have taken a human hours to do. Next up, we've got level 4. I think the overall summary here is this thing now runs continuously and I am responsible for it. This is where people are really starting to think about OpenClaw as a team member. It's its own thing that goes and does stuff. I can give it tasks, it'll do them, come back to me. It's just fitting into our workflows. Level 4 is going to be very roughly 2.5% of people. I will add though, and this is just a general rule, most of the stuff you'll see on Twitter comes from people who are at these top levels. That's what goes viral, that's what gets shared. And so it seems like a lot more people are there than really are. But like any skill, the vast majority of people are beginners, they're early on in their journey. But the average person who lives here looks something like this. This is a very technical founder. This is really an early adopter in the AI space. It's maybe a VP of engineering, someone who's been following agentic coding for a long time and is really at the forefront of it. What they're using it for looks like running a whole team with this thing. And it is also automating giant chunks of their normal human workflow. Now, token costs, this is where it starts to get higher, and especially here, these are very wide ranges depending on what you are doing. As for specific use cases, use case 1 at level 4, and this is where we start to see things get a little bit more technical with the use cases, but is monitoring your business systems. So the old way is you had to manually check Stripe, server uptime, email deliverability, failed payments, support inbox, all of that. Oftentimes you wouldn't know when there was an issue with one of these until somebody complained about it. With OpenClaw, it runs scheduled checks every X minutes, watches for payment failures, server uptime, error logs, email bounce rates, website traffic issues, and it will post summaries to Slack and tell you kind of the header, everything's looking good, or hey, maybe there's this issue. We're gonna flag this, you should take a look. Use case number 2, automated support triage. So say before, dealing with customer support, maybe you have something like intercom or front, issue comes in from a customer, you gotta read the email, categorize it, check the account, look at some data, draft and send a response, log the ticket, and if needed, if you can't solve it, escalate it to somebody else. But now OpenClaw monitors the support inbox, classifies tickets, is taking care of everything in whatever ticketing system you use, be that Jira, Linear, etc. Can pull account data from your CRM, draft a response. Again, still, usually you are sending that draft for approval via Slack just to make sure, but it's up to you. And then again, if there's an issue that doesn't know how to solve, flag that to a human that can handle it. So your time to respond drops and people's burnout drops. If you've ever had to do customer support, it is such a pain. Now, use case 3, quite cool and tied into our use case 1 a little bit. This is incident response. So say you are monitoring something, you see an issue come in, it's at least flagged. Before, maybe you would get an alert, or again, you'd have to wait, but then you have to have a human log into the server, check the logs, restart services, try to diagnose like what exactly is going wrong here. If you've ever been the one doing this, it is pretty stressful. But instead, you can have OpenClaw detect this, then pull the logs automatically, summarize the failure, try to suggest fixes based on research and it writing its own code, maybe even doing some testing, potentially automate a restart if it's allowed to, again, up to you, and then reports back. So it's essentially you have this agent that's saying, oh, there's an issue, I'm gonna try to solve it, I'm gonna test these things, and then let you know, hey, I think this is the issue, this is what I think we should do. And a thing to note here, which will also be true of level 5, is just because you can build it with OpenClaw doesn't mean it's always the best way to actually do it. A lot of these use cases we talk about, there are really excellent tools that handle this for you or are starting to do more and more of it. And so if you're a big company, you probably will use the AI tool that has been tried and tested a million times rather than running everything off of OpenClaw. But you can do it. There are also benefits to running it locally, can be more secure, things like that. But at the very least, it's very cool to be able to do this. As it gets better and better, we might see more people just genuinely running everything off of OpenClaw and saving a bunch in seat fees for these different SaaS or AI tools. So what changes at level 4? This is where OpenClaw is monitoring things 24/7, and it is responding and taking action automatically. It's like it's operating without supervision, but there is supervision because you put guardrails in place. Now, for security measures, this is where it gets really, really important. When it is taking automated actions, you need to have things set up correctly so that it can't go terribly wrong. So what people are doing here is, first of all, you're isolating it. It has its own accounts. It doesn't have access to any of your stuff. So it has its own Gmail account. It has its own HubSpot account. You can't go in and delete all of your personal things that you've put there before. You have systems to watch it. So you may have agents doing things and then other agents watching those agents. And as well, oftentimes code that you wrote yourself, you know for sure there's nothing wrong with this. There's no prompt injection in here, making sure that all of these agents are operating correctly. This is also where you're designing for rebuild. You're assuming that something could go wrong here. Maybe something gets deleted. Maybe I lose my computer or my Mac Mini. So everything is being backed up consistently. So if there's ever an issue, you can just pull the backup and get back to where you were before. It's also where you got to get a little bit more specific with what actions are gated, like what it can't do, because it could be destructive. And if you have never run a business before or been something like a VP of engineering, this is where it starts to feel a little bit unnatural, because now you really have to think about security and orchestrating all of this in a systematic way. It's not just like ship fast, build something cool, all this works, okay, send it. You really have to be thinking about this from a high level. Level 4 value is measured in fewer incidents, faster detection, reduced response time, and less manual monitoring. The other thing here is you start to think about team members that are replaced. Say, we don't need this person anymore because an AI can do it. And then we have level 5, which is the expert AI team builders. This is roughly 0.5% of people. Maybe someone like this or like Peter Steinberger, who created OpenClaw. It's engineering leaders at an AI-first startup where everyone's talking about this, executing on this, or a cracked solo founder who is trying to build just a one-person team, have agents do as much as possible. This is where agents are the vast majority of your team or are essentially running your company. Token costs. Again, this is kind of where the sky's the limit, but a rough ballpark is gonna look something like this. So what actually changes at level 5? A few upgrades happen. One is multi-agent systems. So it's not just I have one agent now, it's I have multiple agents and then usually a manager agent that manages those, selects which agent should handle which task. Here's where you have formal policy thinking in terms of security and outlining how things should be done. And then in-depth defense engineering to make sure nothing can go wrong here. You're safe from attacks, from prompt injection, any of the issues that could arise. And so this is where you'll see really high-level agent teams. People also use like agent teams at levels 4. Can be kind of hard to put everything into one bucket, but a really high-level agent team is where you'd have usually an orchestrator agent and then a bunch of different agents under that. So you could think like a sales agent, a support agent, a monitoring agent, a research agent, a marketing agent, and a compliance agent. And why would you want to split agents like that? Well, there's a few reasons. Creates a lot more predictability in terms of outcomes. It also gives a lot more context clarity because that agent knows this is the only sort of thing that I have to do. It's honestly pretty similar to having human employees. Imagine you had your marketer, but then they also have to do customer support and they have to do engineering. It's like, well, I can't really do all of these well. It'd be better if I was just on marketing. It's largely the same with agents. This also improves security boundaries and just overall performance for those reasons. Let's talk real world use cases for level 5. Imagine a SaaS company with 20,000 users and they want AI 24/7 customer support. So instead of the old way doing it with humans, now they have a team of AI agents. You've got the intake agent, so they read the incoming tickets, the knowledge agent who searches the internal docs, account agent that fetches user or billing data, the response agent that drafts the answers. Maybe they have some anti-AI writing type of thing built in so it doesn't look like an AI output, and then an escalation agent who decides if this needs to be sent to a human to take action. And then, like we said, above that, the orchestrator agent who decides which of those agents does which task. Example 2, a marketing and growth agent team. So imagine there's a B2B company. They want lead scraping, enrichment, outreach, CRM updates, campaign monitoring, cold email, performance analytics. At level 5, this looks something like a lead agent that pulls leads via approved APIs. Maybe you're using Phantom Buster, Clay, Apollo, any of those things. Enrichment agent, similar tools to verify that the data is good, emails are good, phone numbers are good, etc. A compliance agent to make sure you're not breaking any like CAN spam rules or things like that. Outreach agent that will draft messages. An analytics agent that tracks response rates and reports on it, maybe flags you if email deliverability is low. And then an optimization agent that looks at what should we change here to improve performance. Again, coordinated by the growth orchestrator. Now, security at level 5, like I said, very important. This is where you have very strict and clean documented invariants, so things that agents cannot do. These are the rules that you have to operate within. Some builders here even write regression tests for security behavior. They run test threats to see how agents would respond. They'll model different policies to see how things play out. This is also where logging all of your actions and security protocols becomes really important for auditability. So you could look through and say, okay, here's where this thing broke, this went wrong, this is unsafe, let's fix it. You're also seeing set thresholds for different issues that could come up. So say with our example of outreach, if email deliverability falls below an X%, like say below 97%, we are going to pause the campaign. Stuff like that across every level. A couple more, and I feel like this is kind of getting into jargony territory, but we are at level 5. So token rotation plans, so that you don't always have the same tokens, but things are getting swapped in and out, so that there's a limit to like how bad it can go or how long something could be abused. Basically, you've got so many different layers of protection. If you're not there yet, don't worry about this though. This is like pretty complex stuff. For the average user, you don't have to worry about all this too much. Now, how is value measured at level 5? This one for sure is team members replaced, or maybe a better way to think about it is team hours replaced. Like before, a person would have spent 20 hours doing this. Now the agent does it and it takes them 2 hours. So we can have that same person just do 20 hours on something else. A couple more here. Reliability, so fewer failures. What I'll call blast radius, so when something goes wrong, the damage is limited pretty quickly into a small area. Your mean time to detect and mean time to resolve issues. Auditability, which we mentioned. Cost efficiency is another one. It's starting to get more expensive here, so you might have agents kind of running to look at, we could save money here if we switch models, if we shut off this, if we didn't have as many cron jobs running at this point in time, stuff like that. And then really human attention saved. So now people can stop thinking about or worrying about this. They can focus on what they are best at, let the agents do what they are best at. And now you might be wondering how much of this is real versus hype. It's a good question. I do think there's still a lot of hype on the internet, but OpenClaw has really gone viral for the reason that it can do so many things that before were complicated, or like you could do them, but it was hard to stitch it together in a way that made sense, especially to the average user. Like I said before, not everything that you can do in OpenClaw is actually something that you would want to do. Some of it is more just a novelty project. It's cool to build it yourself rather than pay a SaaS tool $30 a month to be able to do it. But I would say the biggest thing is the people who are at the forefront of this, the level 4s and level 5s, are seeing a ton of value and think it's only going to continue. So as someone who's not there yet, I look to those people as signals of what is to come, and I tend to trust their judgment. Overall, OpenClaw is a great skill to build, thing to learn about, and hopefully this video helped you understand how you can go up different levels and what the skill looks like at different levels. If you have any questions or helpful advice, I'm sure I missed a ton of stuff. That's just bound to happen when making a video. Can't fit everything in. Please drop that in the comments below. I'll try to do my best to respond, or other people respond as well. We can help each other out so that we can all get better at this.